On the evening of July 16, 2023, Imani Roberson had dinner with her mother. All four of her boys were there: the 11-year-old, the 9-year-old, the 3-year-old, and the baby, 1-month-old, the newest person in a family that Imani was trying to hold together while simultaneously trying to find a way out of a marriage that had become dangerous. After dinner, two of the older boys stayed with their grandmother, Clarine Andujar, White Conyers. Imani drove home with the youngest two, the 3-year-old, the 1-month-old. She was 29 years old, and she was navigating the most dangerous window in any intimate relationship involving abuse. The window of separation, the period researchers consistently identify as the highest risk moment in the entire arc of domestic violence. She was trying to leave, and she had her babies with her. She never arrived anywhere safe that night. What a judge later told a courtroom, in the formal and measured language of legal proceedings, is the detail that stops every person who hears this case cold. The judge said the 3-year-old had audibly heard the incident, and that both children, the 3-year-old and the 1-month-old, were in the vehicle when their mother was being transported out of the county. Let those words settle. A 3-year-old who heard it, a 1-month-old who was there, both of them in a car with their mother's body being moved to another county. Imani's 4 sons, ages 1 month, 3, 9, and 11 years old, are now living with their grandmother. She is raising them. She is building new memories while keeping the old ones alive. She is doing it without her daughter. She is doing it because she is the kind of mother who raised a daughter home from dinner on July 16th with her 2 youngest children because she was their mother and they needed her, and she was going to be there for them regardless of what else was happening in her life. This is the story of Imani Roberson, and the story of what her family is carrying, and the story of what 4 boys are growing up inside. Welcome to the Crime Files TV. This channel covers the stories from Black American communities that deserve to be told completely, with the victims at the center and the full weight of the evidence treated with the respect it demands. Subscribe now if you are not here already. This case from 2023 has layers that most of the coverage did not reach. Now let's go back to the beginning. Imani Roberson was 29 years old. She lived in Conyers, Georgia, in Rockdale County, a suburb of Atlanta approximately 25 miles east of the city. Conyers is a mid-sized city that sits at the edge of the Atlanta metropolitan area, a place where families put down roots, where communities have long histories, where people know each other across time in the ways that smaller cities inside larger metro areas sometimes allow. Imani had roots there. She had her mother, she had her boys, she had a life that she had been building across 29 years that included 4 children who needed her every single day, and a marriage that had become something she was trying to find a way out of. The details of what the marriage between Imani Roberson and Donnell Anderson looked like from the inside are not fully detailed in the public record. What is documented is the characterization that investigators and the court have applied to the situation. Domestic incident, that is the official language, and the specific detail that Imani was trying to leave, trying to create separation from a situation that had become unsafe, is documented in the accounts of the people who knew her and in the investigative framework that Rockdale County Sheriff Eric Levitt described at the press conference following Anderson's arrest. She was trying to get out. She was in the most dangerous window of that attempt. Donnell Anderson was Imani's husband. He was also, as the investigation would reveal, a man who was not living in the family home on a consistent basis. He had an apartment in Atlanta at 2285 Metropolitan Parkway SW, which is approximately 24 miles west of Conyers on the other side of the metropolitan area. That apartment is significant not simply as a geographic detail, but as an investigative one, because on July 25th, more than a week after Imani was reported missing, the Rockdale County Sheriff's Office stated publicly that Imani and her white Mazda SUV had been seen for the final time at that Metropolitan Parkway address on the evening of July 16th. She drove from Conyers to Atlanta that night. She drove to his apartment, and she was never seen alive again. Cedarius Glaze was 28 years old. He was Donnell Anderson's brother. He was Imani's brother-in-law, and according to the Rockdale County Sheriff's Office, he played a key role in the disposal of Imani Roberson's body. Those are the official words: key role, disposal, the specific and clinical language of a law enforcement agency describing what a brother did for his brother in the hours after something happened inside that Atlanta apartment on the night of July 16th. Now let's walk through the 20 days between July 16th and August 5th, 2023. Because those 20 days are the full investigative arc of this case, and they move through a sequence of discoveries that each added weight to a picture that the Rockdale County Sheriff's Office was assembling with the specific, sustained urgency of investigators who understand that time matters and that every day a case goes without resolution is another day family is waiting. Imani left dinner with her mother on the evening of July 16th. Her two older boys stayed the night with their grandmother. Imani drove home with the 3-year-old and the 1-month-old. Somewhere between Conyers and the end of that evening, she ended up at the Atlanta apartment on Metropolitan Parkway. That is the last confirmed sighting of her alive. On July 17th, Clarine Andujar-White called her daughter repeatedly and received no answer. She drove to Imani's home in Conyers. No one was there. The house was empty. She called police and reported her daughter missing. The Rockdale County Sheriff's Office opened a missing persons investigation immediately. Sheriff Levitt said at the subsequent press conference that his office had contacted family and friends, identified locations that Roberson was known to frequent, and conducted surveillance on places she was known to be. The investigation was active from day one. The family was in contact with investigators throughout, and Clarine Andujar-White said publicly afterward that when she could not reach Imani almost 3 weeks before the arrest, she knew something was wrong. She knew it from the first unanswered call. She said it plainly. I knew something was wrong. What investigators found during the search warrants they executed in the days that followed confirmed that the family's fear was correct. They searched Imani's home in Conyers. They found blood. They found it in multiple locations inside the home. Sheriff Levitt said at the press conference that the investigation intensified, and it became clear that foul play was evident in the disappearance of Imani. Blood in a missing person's home is the specific evidence that transforms a missing person investigation into a homicide investigation in the minds of every experienced investigator present. It is not ambiguous. It does not require interpretation. It tells investigators that whatever happened, it happened violently, and it happened somewhere the victim lived and should have been safe. The blood in the house was not the only blood evidence. Blood was found in multiple other locations as well. The investigation was spreading its geography, following the evidence outward from Conyers into the larger Atlanta metro landscape, tracking what had happened and where it had gone. On July 27th, 11 days after Imani was reported missing, investigators found her car. It was in a wooded area off Camp Creek Parkway near Union Road in southwest Atlanta. The white Mazda SUV that Imani had driven home from her mother's house with her two youngest children was there burned from the inside out. Ring camera footage from a home across the street from Imani's address in Conyers showed the vehicle pulling out of the driveway on the day she went missing, moving fast. The car that was supposed to take her children home from their grandmother's house and bring them to safety had become evidence of what their father had allegedly done. The car was burned. Imani's body was not in it. The investigation continued. For 9 more days, Clarine Andujar-White and the rest of Imani's family existed inside the specific and excruciating uncertainty of knowing something terrible had happened and not yet knowing the full shape of it. They knew about the blood. They knew about the burned car. They knew from the silence that had started on July 16th and had not broken since that whatever had happened to Imani was something she had not chosen and had not survived. But her body had not been found, and the specific, grinding difference between knowing your child is gone and having the physical confirmation of where she is and what happened to her is something that only the people who have lived inside it can fully describe. Clarine Andujar-White gathered her grandsons, the 2 older boys who had stayed the night with her. And at some point in those 20 days, the 2 youngest, the 3-year-old and the 1-month-old, came to her as well. 4 boys, ages ranging from 1 month to 11 years. All of them in their grandmother's home, all of them waiting for information that their grandmother was dreading receiving. On Friday, August 4th, 2023, a cadaver dog led investigators to Imani Roberson's body. She was found in the Atlanta area near the burned vehicle. She had been there. Her body had been concealed and then discovered by a tool designed specifically for finding what human beings try to hide when they are trying to cover the evidence of what they have done. The cadaver dog found what the search had not found in 20 days of looking. Donnell Anderson was arrested that same evening, Friday, August 4th, after the body was located. He was taken into custody at his Atlanta apartment, the apartment on Metropolitan Parkway SW, the last place Imani was seen alive. Rockdale County Sheriff Eric Levitt stood at a press conference the following Saturday and announced the charges: felony murder, malice murder, aggravated assault, possession of a firearm during commission of a crime. He said the investigation was still ongoing. He said he could assure the public that another arrest would be made. And then he said something that extends beyond this specific case into the full landscape of what his county had been experiencing that year. He said his office had had about 4 or 5 murders that year. He said every last one of them had been domestic family violence related, every single one. He said that if there was anyone out there involved in a toxic relationship, whether they were receiving mental abuse, verbal abuse, or physical abuse, it was not worth it. That statement, made at a press conference about Imani Roberson's murder, is a law enforcement official doing something that law enforcement officials are not always willing to do in the moment of a high-profile case. He stepped back from the specific case to address the pattern it belongs to. He named domestic violence as the through line of his county's murder statistics for the year. He spoke directly to the people watching who might be in situations like Imani's. He said it was not worth it. He meant stay alive. He meant get out before it reaches this. He meant that the pattern he was describing at Imani's press conference was a pattern he was seeing over and over again, and that the only response he had left after the investigation was done and the suspect was in custody was to say it plainly to whoever was listening. 4 days later, on August 9th, investigators received a tip about Cedarius Glaze. He was located and taken into custody on Tuesday morning. He was charged with tampering with evidence, concealment of a dead body, and arson. His charges, distinct from his brother's but directly connected to the same events, describe what prosecutors allege he did after Imani was killed. He helped get rid of her body. He burned the car. He was Anderson's brother, and he helped Anderson in the aftermath of what Anderson allegedly did to his wife. The specific decision to call your brother after something like this, and the specific decision to answer that call and do what the charges allege Glaze did, is something that the criminal justice system will eventually address in full. Both men have been charged. Both men are presumed innocent until proven guilty. The cases are pending in the Georgia court system. Imani's family appeared at the press conference when Anderson was denied bond on Sunday, August 6th. Her mother, Clarine Andujar White, expressed the family's gratitude for the law enforcement response and the community support. She said they were there to represent Imani and to make sure the children were in a safe place. She said they could make new memories while keeping the old memories alive. She offered the thought that grief is love, that loving someone means grieving them when they are gone, and that grief is not something to fear but something to move through with the people who share it with you. This is a woman who buried her daughter, who came to a press conference days after identifying her daughter's body, who stood in front of cameras and spoke with a grace and a steadiness that the moment did not require of her, but that she chose to offer anyway, because she is the woman who raised Imani, and Imani was, by every account, exactly the kind of person that a mother like Clarine would raise. Imani's sister patient spoke to Fox 5 Atlanta after Anderson's bond was denied. She did not choose the measured language of someone trying to maintain a careful public posture. She said what she believed plainly and directly. She called Anderson a sociopath. She said he was insane for what he did. She said he should lose everything. She said it was out of nowhere for no reason. She said you should have nothing. Her words are not the words of someone who has processed what happened into an acceptable form for public consumption. They are the raw words of a sister, still in the immediate aftermath of learning what happened to her sister, still inside the specific shock and fury of a loss that makes no sense and demands an accounting that no courtroom fully provides. The 4 boys are with their grandmother, the 11-year-old, the 9-year-old, the 3-year-old who heard it, the 1-month-old who was there. Clarine Andujar White is raising them. She is providing the consistency and the love and the daily presence that 4 children without a mother require. She is doing it while grieving. She is doing it while navigating the legal proceedings that are moving through the Georgia court system. She is doing it while holding together a family that was permanently altered on the night of July 16th, and that has not stopped needing her to hold it together since. The 3-year-old who heard what happened in that apartment is now 4, maybe 5. He is growing into a child who will eventually be old enough to ask questions that the adults around him have been trying to figure out how to answer since the night they found his mother. He carries, at an age when most children are learning the names of colors and the letters of the alphabet, a specific and indelible experience that child psychologists who work with trauma consistently identify as one of the most significant adverse childhood experiences a developing mind can be subjected to. He was there, he heard it, he was in the car. Whatever processing that experience requires, it will require it across years and decades of his life, with the right support and without it, as he grows into the person he is going to be in the absence of the mother who drove him home from dinner on July 16th. The 1-month-old was also there. He is now a toddler. He has no memory of that night in the cognitive sense that memory works. But the research on early childhood trauma does not require conscious memory to document impact. The body remembers what the mind cannot retrieve. The absence of a mother in the first months of life has developmental consequences that science has documented with increasing precision. Imani's youngest son will grow up knowing his mother through photographs and through the stories his grandmother tells him, and through the specific way that love is transmitted when the person who should be transmitting it directly is no longer alive to do so. He will know her. He will not have known her. Both of those things are true simultaneously, and neither one cancels the other. Let's talk about the systemic reality that this case belongs inside, because Sheriff Levitt named it at the press conference, and this channel is committed to following the thread he pulled on. Every murder in Rockdale County in 2023, up to the point of that August press conference, was domestic violence related. 4 or 5 murders, every one of them inside the framework of intimate partner or family violence. That is not a coincidence. It is a pattern. It is the specific, recurring, predictable pattern of lethal violence that emerges from intimate relationships where control, coercion, and the refusal to accept separation are present and unaddressed. The period of separation or attempted separation is the most dangerous period in any abusive relationship. Researchers have documented it consistently across decades of study. Women who are trying to leave abusive partners are at significantly elevated risk of lethal violence in the weeks and months surrounding that separation. The specific moment when a controlling partner realizes that the control is slipping, that the person they have organized their sense of power around is actually going to leave, is the moment the risk spikes to its highest point. Imani Roberson was trying to leave. She had a plan. She had her mother nearby. She had dinner with her family on July 16th and went home with her 2 youngest because she was their mother. And that is what mothers do. And somewhere between Conyers and the end of that evening, the attempt to leave became the event that the sheriff's press conference was called about. The specific detail that both young children were in the vehicle when the body was moved is not a footnote. It is a window into the complete absence of consideration for those children's well-being in the decisions made that night. A 3-year-old who heard what happened was then put in a car with what had happened. A 1-month-old was there. Whatever was prioritized in the decision to move the body, the children's safety and their developmental well-being were not part of the calculation. And that absence of consideration for those 2 small children is part of the full moral accounting of what is alleged to have happened on July 16th, 2023. Donnell Anderson is being held without bond in the Rockdale County Jail. He faces felony murder, malice murder, aggravated assault, and possession of a firearm during commission of a crime. Cedarius Glaze faces tampering with evidence, concealment of a dead body, and arson. Both men have pleaded not guilty. Both cases are moving through the Georgia court system. As of the most current available public record, a trial date in early 2024 had been discussed, but the proceedings have not yet concluded at the time of this video. Both men are presumed innocent until proven guilty. Imani Roberson was 29 years old. She was a daughter who went to her mother's house for dinner on a July evening and brought all 4 of her boys because she was that kind of mother. She had a plan to leave a marriage that had become unsafe, and she was working toward it with the tools available to her in the specific and difficult, geometry of a separation that involves children and shared housing, and a partner who does not accept the separation. She was building something for her boys. She was trying. She was 29 years old, and she had every right to leave and every right to expect that the decision to leave would not cost her everything. It cost her everything. And her 4 sons are growing up in their grandmother's house, learning who their mother was from the people who loved her, building their lives in the space her absence has created, which is a space that no amount of love from Clarine Andujar-White, as generous and as devoted as that love is, can fully fill. Because the specific shape of a mother is not replaceable. It is not transferable. It is permanent and particular, and it belongs to the person who created it. And Imani Roberson's shape is not in that house anymore. 4 sons. No mother. If you or someone you know is trying to leave a relationship that has become controlling, threatening, or physically dangerous, please do not navigate that transition alone. Safety planning with a trained advocate can significantly increase the probability of leaving safely. The National Domestic Violence Hotline is available at 1-800-799-7233, free and confidential 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, by call, text, and chat at thehotline.org. In Georgia, the Georgia Coalition Against Domestic Violence can be reached at 1-800-334-2836. The period of leaving is the most dangerous period. Please do not face it without support. Subscribe to the Crime Files TV. Share this video for Imani, for Clarine Andujar-White, who raised her daughter and is now raising her daughter's sons. For the 4 boys who will grow up knowing they were loved completely by a woman who drove them home from dinner because that is what their mother did. 4 sons. No mother. That is the full weight of July 16, 2023. And it is a weight this channel will not allow to be forgotten.